एंशंट रिवर, मतलब ये नदी हजारों साल से बह रही है और इसमें पता है अलग अलग स्ट्रीम्स आकर मिलती हैं। कुछ स्ट्रीम्स एकदम क्रिस्टल क्लियर हैं, कुछ थोड़ी मडी, और हर स्ट्रीम अपना अलग फ्लेवर, अपनी अलग एनर्जी लाती है।
सही।
बेसिकली दोस्त, ये रिवर ही इंडियन सोसाइटी है और ये स्ट्रीम्स हैं अलग अलग रिलीजन्स जिन्होंने इसे शेप किया है। डिड यू नो कि अहिंसा का कॉन्सेप्ट जो हम गांधी जी से जोड़ते हैं, उसकी रूट्स एक ऐसे एंशिएंट रिलीजन में है जो हर लिविंग बीइंग में सोल देखता है।
सो कूल, है ना?
Hey, if this helps you, hit subscribe now. Comment your feedback, share to grow the channel. So let's lock in the journey together.
Exactly. और आज हम इन्हीं स्ट्रीम्स की गहराई में उतरेंगे। Our mission is to understand how Buddhism, Jainism, Islam and Christianity ने इंडियन सोसाइटी के सोशल, कल्चरल एंड पॉलिटिकल फैब्रिक को मतलब कैसे बुना है।
हाँ, ये एक लंबी डिटेल जर्नी होने वाली है।
For sure.
So let's unpack this. आज का हमारा लर्निंग मैप बहुत बड़ा है। So buckle up. हम शुरू करेंगे रिलीजियस प्लूरलिज्म एंड सोशल सॉलिडारिटी के आइडिया से। फिर we'll dive into Jainism's core tenets and its impact.
उसके बाद we will critically examine the indigenization of Christianity, फिर इस्लाम का massive impact और उसके बाद Buddhism and Jainism का combined influence।
और भी बहुत कुछ है। We'll talk about the socio-political status of Muslims in India, बुद्धिज्म का इकोनॉमिक इन्फ्लुएंस, इस्लाम एंड मैट्रिलिनी का वो यूनिक कनेक्शन।
हाँ, और कॉम्पोजिट कल्चर में इस्लाम का कंट्रीब्यूशन, हरप्पन रिलीजन और हिंदुइज्म के लिंक्स, और फाइनली द ब्यूटीफुल सूफी ट्रेडिशन।
तो चलो शुरू करते हैं। टॉपिक नेम, रिलीजियस प्लूरलिज्म एंड सोशल सॉलिडारिटी।
ब्रॉड माइक्रो थीम, examining the relationship between religious diversity, pluralism, and social cohesion, solidarity in a society.
Okay, so religious pluralism. बेसिकली इसका मतलब है कि एक सोसाइटी में अलग-अलग फेथ्स एक साथ एग्जिस्ट कर सकते हैं।
With mutual respect.
हाँ, सिर्फ टॉलरेट करना नहीं, जेन्युइनली रिस्पेक्ट करना।
Exactly.
और सोशल सॉलिडारिटी, वो एक तरह से सोसाइटी का ग्लू है, वो शेयर्ड वैल्यूज जो सबको जोड़ती हैं।
इसका एक बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल है, इमेजिन एक हाउसिंग सोसाइटी जहां दिवाली, ईद, क्रिसमस और गुरपुरब सब लोग मिल के मनाते हैं।
अच्छा।
एक दूसरे के घर जाना, फूड शेयर करना, ये एक छोटा सा रियल लाइफ एग्जाम्पल है रिलीजियस प्लूरलिज्म का, जो सोशल सॉलिडारिटी को बूस्ट करता है।
राइट। सो लेट्स गेट इनटू द कंटेंट। इंट्रोडक्शन के लिए ये जानना इंपॉर्टेंट है कि स्कॉलर जॉन हिक ने रिलीजियस प्लूरलिज्म को अ रिस्पॉन्स टू द डाइवर्सिटी ऑफ रिलीजियस बिलीफ्स एंड अ कमिटमेंट टू अ कोऑपरेटिव एंड पीसफुल कोएग्जिस्टेंस कहा था।
मतलब डाइवर्सिटी को पीसफुली मैनेज करने का एक फ्रेमवर्क।
यस।
और बैकग्राउंड के लिए वी हैव टू लुक एट एमाइल डर्कहाइम। उन्होंने आर्ग्यू किया था कि मॉडर्न सोसाइटीज में सॉलिडारिटी मैकेनिकल से ऑर्गेनिक हो जाती है।
ओके, व्हाट डज दैट मीन?
मैकेनिकल मतलब पहले लोग एक जैसे थे तो यूनाइटेड थे, पर अब हम सब अलग हैं और इंटरडिपेंडेंट हैं। डॉक्टर को फार्मर चाहिए, फार्मर को इंजीनियर चाहिए।
अच्छा, सो ऑर्गेनिक सॉलिडारिटी इज बेस्ड ऑन इंटरडिपेंडेंस।
यस, और इसी कॉन्टेक्स्ट में प्लूरलिज्म सुपर इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है।
ओके, सो लेट्स गेट टू द कोर लॉजिक। फर्स्ट, शेयर्ड एथिक्स, मतलब अलग-अलग थियोलॉजीज के बावजूद ज्यादातर रिलीजन्स कॉमन वैल्यूज प्रमोट करते हैं, जस्टिस, पीस, कंपैशन।
हाँ, तो गोल्डन रूल है ना, ट्रीट अदर्स एज यू वांट टू बी ट्रीटेड। ये कॉन्सेप्ट तो हर बड़े रिलीजन में मिलता है।
एग्जैक्टली।
फिर एक फैसिनेटिंग कॉन्सेप्ट है कल्चरल सिंक्रेटिज्म। ये बेसिकली रिलीजियस ट्रेडिशंस का फ्यूजन है, उनका मिलना।
एग्जाम्पल?
इंडिया में सूफिज्म, जहाँ हिंदू और इस्लामिक ट्रेडिशंस का ब्यूटीफुल ब्लेंड दिखता है। सूफी दरगाहों पर सब जाते हैं, रिलीजन देखे बिना।
राइट, ये इंटर कम्युनिटी बॉन्ड्स को ग्रास रूट्स लेवल पे स्ट्रेंथन करता है।
बिल्कुल, पर इसके चैलेंजेस भी हैं,
है ना?
हाँ, दो बड़े चैलेंजेस। एक है सेक्टेरियन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स, ये तब होता है जब रिलीजियस आइडेंटिटी को पॉलिटिसाइज कर दिया जाता है।
और दूसरा?
मेजॉरिटेरियनिज्म, जब एक मेजॉरिटी रिलीजन सोसाइटी को डोमिनेट करने लगता है। ये सोशल कोहीजन को वीकन करता है। इंडिया में हुए कम्युनल राइट्स इसके ट्रैजिक एग्जांपल्स हैं।
सो अ रोबस्ट डेमोक्रेसी के लिए ये बैलेंस बहुत जरूरी है।
फॉर श्योर। टू काउंटर दिस वी हैव एनहांसमेंट मैकेनिज्म्स, जैसे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल सेफगार्ड्स। इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में आर्टिकल्स 25 to 28 रिलीजियस फ्रीडम इंश्योर करते हैं।
राइट, एंड व्हाट एल्स?
इंटरफेथ डायलॉग्स और शेयर्ड पब्लिक स्पेसेस, जैसे फेस्टिवल्स को मिलकर सेलिब्रेट करना।
ओके, लेट्स लॉक दिस इन। कुछ क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग करते हैं। सो एमिल डॉर्कहाइम ने मॉडर्न सोसाइटी की सॉलिडारिटी को क्या कहा था?
उन्होंने इसे ऑर्गेनिक सॉलिडारिटी कहा था, which is based on interdependence, not homogeneity. याद रखना।
ग्रेट। एंड कल्चरल सिंक्रेटिज्म का वो इजी टू रिमेंबर एग्जांपल क्या था?
बिल्कुल, सूफी प्रैक्टिसेस इन इंडिया, जहां हिंदू मुस्लिम ट्रेडिशंस का ब्यूटीफुल ब्लेंड दिखता है।
परफेक्ट। सोशल सॉलिडारिटी के लिए दो सबसे बड़े थ्रेट्स क्या हैं?
सेक्टेरियन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स, जहां रिलीजन पॉलिटिसाइज हो जाता है, और मेजॉरिटेरियनिज्म, दोनों बहुत डेंजरस हैं।
ओके, एंड व्हिच आर्टिकल्स इन द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन प्रोटेक्ट रिलीजियस फ्रीडम?
आर्टिकल्स 25 to 28, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसको नोट कर लो।
एंड बिसाइड्स लॉज, सॉलिडारिटी बढ़ाने का प्रैक्टिकल तरीका क्या है?
इंटरफेथ डायलॉग्स और फेस्टिवल्स को साथ में मनाना, बेसिकली ह्यूमन कनेक्शन बिल्ड करना।
Now pause and practice saying this part aloud. Religious pluralism coexists with organic solidarity through shared ethics and syncretism, but is challenged by sectarianism.
इन शॉर्ट, रिलीजियस डाइवर्सिटी और सोशल यूनिटी एक डेलिकेट बैलेंस है, जिसे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज और म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट से मेंटेन किया जाता है।
Topic name: Discuss the basic tenets of Jainism and its impact on Indian society.
ब्रॉड माइक्रो थीम, Analysis of the foundational principles of Jainism and its multifaceted influence across ethical, philosophical, and socio-cultural domains in India.
सो जैनिज्म इंडिया के एंशिएंट रिलीजन्स में से एक। इसके कोर में है एथिक्स, नॉन वायलेंस और ऐसी प्रैक्टिसेस जो डिटैचमेंट सिखाती हैं।
हाँ, मतलब a path of extreme self-discipline.
राइट।
आपने वीगनिज्म के बारे में सुना होगा, है ना?
हाँ।
जैनिज्म का वेजिटेरियनिज्म उससे भी एक स्टेप आगे है। वो रूट वेजिटेबल्स जैसे आलू, प्याज भी अवॉइड करते हैं
ओह व्हाई?
बिकॉज उन्हें हार्वेस्ट करने में सॉइल में मौजूद माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स को हार्म हो सकता है। दिस इज अहिंसा और नॉन वायलेंस इन एक्सट्रीम प्रैक्टिस। माइंड ब्लोइंग, राइट?
वाओ। ओके, सो लेट्स डिस्कस दिस। इंट्रोडक्शन में इट्स की टू नो दैट जैनिज्म ने इंडिया को प्रोफाउंडली इन्फ्लुएंस किया है और इसका बैकग्राउंड महावीरा की टीचिंग्स में रूटेड है।
यस, अब कोर लॉजिक की बात करते हैं। इट स्टार्ट्स विद द एथिकल प्रिंसिपल्स, द 5 महाव्रतास और ग्रेट वाउस। सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है अहिंसा, नॉन वायलेंस।
मतलब सिर्फ फिजिकली हर्ट ना करना।
नहीं, इट्स नॉन वायलेंस इन थॉट, वर्ड एंड डीड। फिर है सत्या, ट्रूथफुलनेस, अस्तेय, नॉन स्टीलिंग, ब्रह्मचर्य, सेलिबसी और अपरिग्रह, नॉन पोजेसिवनेस।
ओके, एंड व्हाट अबाउट द फिलोसॉफिकल टेनेट्स?
यहाँ 2 की आइडियाज हैं। फर्स्ट इज अनेकांतावादा, नॉन एब्सोल्यूटिज्म।
व्हिच मींस
इसका मतलब है कि ट्रूथ इज मल्टीफैसेटेड। एक ही चीज के कई पर्सपेक्टिव्स हो सकते हैं। ये इमेंस टॉलरेंस को प्रमोट करता है।
इंटरेस्टिंग। और द सेकंड वन?
सेकेंड इज देयर इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ कर्मा थ्योरी, जो कहता है कि कर्मा इज अ फिजिकल सब्सटेंस दैट स्टिक्स टू द सोल। गोल है सोल को प्यूरिफाई करना।
So it emphasizes individual responsibility.
प्रिसाइजली, और इसका रियल वर्ल्ड इम्पैक्ट बहुत बड़ा है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एथिकल पॉलिटिकल रिफॉर्म में अहिंसा के प्रिंसिपल ने महात्मा गांधी को डीपली इंस्पायर किया।
Right.
एंड सोशियो कल्चरली, जैन डाइटरी नॉर्म्स ने इंडियन वेजिटेरियन प्रैक्टिसेस को इन्फ्लुएंस किया है, जैसा सोशियोलॉजिस्ट आरपी खंडेकर ने स्टडी किया।
And what about philosophical and literary enrichment?
अनेकांतावादा ने इंडियन थॉट को इनरिच किया। जैनिज्म ने रिच लिटरेचर जैसे कल्पसूत्रा और अमेजिंग आर्ट एंड आर्किटेक्चर जैसे दिलवारा टेम्पल्स कंट्रीब्यूट किया।
Wow.
इनफैक्ट जीएस घुरिये ने हाईलाइट किया कि कैसे उनका कर्मा कॉन्सेप्ट हिंदू बुद्धिस्ट ट्रेडिशंस में भी गया।
Okay, time for some cross questioning. जैनिज्म का सबसे important ethical principle क्या है?
अहिंसा और नॉन वायलेंस, इट्स द कॉर्नरस्टोन ऑफ देयर फिलॉसफी। सिंपल, याद रखना।
Got it. वो philosophical idea क्या है जिसका मतलब है truth is multifaceted?
अनेकांतावादा, इट सजेस्ट दैट डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव्स कैन ऑल होल्ड अ पीस ऑफ द ट्रूथ। आज के लिए बहुत रेलेवेंट है।
For sure. महात्मा गांधी जैनिज्म के किस प्रिंसिपल से सबसे ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस हुए थे?
अहिंसा, ऑफ कोर्स। उन्होंने इसे पॉलिटिकल एक्टिविज्म का एक पावरफुल टूल बना दिया।
Okay. Can you give a famous example of Jain architecture?
Absolutely. Dilwara temples in Rajasthan. The marble carving is just incredible.
And which sociologists study the impact of Jain dietary norms?
R.P. खांडेकर। ये नाम याद रखने से आंसर में वैल्यू ऐड होती है।
Chalo, practicing this. Jainism's core tenets are the Mahavratas, like ahimsa, and philosophical concepts like Anekantavada, which impacted Indian society ethically and culturally.
In short, जैनिज्म ने इंडिया को अहिंसा का एथिकल कंपस और अनेकांतावादा का फिलोसॉफिकल लेंस दिया।
Topic name: Critically examine indigenization of Christianity in India.
Broad micro theme, analyzing the cultural, theological, and social adaptation of Christianity within the Indian context and evaluating the criticisms against this process.
Indigenization of Christianity. Basically, इसका मतलब है Christianity के symbols, rituals और ideas को Indian culture के हिसाब से adapt करना.
हाँ, ताकि वो एलियन ना लगे।
Right. Familiar और relatable लगे. Like faith getting a local makeover.
फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इंडिया में क्रिश्चियन नन्स का साड़ी पहनना या चर्च हिम्स को इंडियन क्लासिकल रागाज में गाना। इट्स अबाउट मेकिंग द फेथ फील एट होम।
Okay, so for the introduction and background, we need to understand that 19th century से Christianity का impact specially tribal societies में काफी बढ़ा.
हाँ, और इंडिजिनाइजेशन एक इंटेंशनल प्रोसेस था टू शेड द कॉलोनियल लेबर और फेथ को इंडियन सोशो कल्चरल रियलिटीज में रूट करने के लिए।
Let's discuss the core logic. पहले features and contributions. First is cultural adaptation.
जैसे प्रीस्ट्स का ट्रेडिशनल इंडियन अटायर पहनना या चर्चेज में आरती जैसी लैंप सेरेमनी यूज करना।
Right? Second,
थियोलॉजिकल कंटेक्चुअलाइजेशन, इंडियन थियोलॉजियंस ने क्रिश्चियन डॉक्ट्रिन्स को इंडियन फिलॉसफी के थ्रू रीइंटरप्रेट किया।
for example,
ब्रह्मा बांधव उपाध्याय ने क्राइस्ट को हिंदू अवतार कॉन्सेप्ट का फुलफिलमेंट बताया।
that's fascinating.
थर्ड इज सोशल एंगेजमेंट। दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। हाँ, इंडिजिनाइज्ड मिशंस ने दलित्स के इमेंसिपेशन में स्पेशली इन तमिलनाडु एंड केरला की रोल प्ले किया। स्टीफन नेल ने नोट किया कि सिख क्रिश्चियनिटी एक इंडियन फेथ बनी।
और इससे दलित theology जैसी contextual theologies भी emerge हुई.
यस,
But the directive is to critically examine. So let's look at the criticisms and limitations.
राइट। फर्स्ट, सुपरफिशियल एडेप्टेशन। क्रिटिक्स आर्ग्यू करते हैं कि ये चेंजेस अक्सर सिर्फ सिंबॉलिक होते हैं, अटायर, आर्किटेक्चर।
लेकिन core Western theological framework वैसा रहता है.
एग्जैक्टली। सेकंड, रेजिस्टेंस फ्रॉम ट्रेडिशनलिस्ट्स। कुछ कंजर्वेटिव क्रिश्चियन ग्रुप्स इसे डॉक्ट्रिनल प्योरिटी पर कॉम्प्रोमाइज मानते हैं। थर्ड, पॉलिटिकल मिस इंटरप्रिटेशन।
हाँ, हिंदुत्व आइडियोलॉग्स इसे हिंदूज को कन्वर्ट करने की एक स्ट्रेटेजिक प्लॉय के रूप में देखते हैं।
मतलब रिलीजन को इंडियन कल्चर में मास्क किया जा रहा है।
एंड फाइनली, आइडेंटिटी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट। दिस ब्लेंड ऑफ ट्रेडिशंस कैन क्रिएट एन आइडेंटिटी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट फॉर सम फॉलोअर्स।
तो कंक्लूजन ये है कि while indigenization has increased the faith's acceptability, it must navigate criticisms of superficiality and political manipulation to be truly successful. It's a tightrope walk.
ओके, लेट्स क्रॉस क्वेश्चन। इंडिजिनाइजेशन का एक सिंपल कल्चरल अडेप्टेशन एग्जांपल बताओ।
क्रिश्चियन हिम्स को इंडियन क्लासिकल रागाज में गाना सो कूल है ना।
इट इज। किस थियोलॉजियन ने क्राइस्ट को अवतार कॉन्सेप्ट से जोड़ा था?
ब्रह्म बांधव उपाध्याय। उनका काम थियोलॉजिकल कंटेक्चुअलाइजेशन का प्राइम एग्जाम्पल है।
व्हाट इज अ मेजर क्रिटिसिज्म अगेंस्ट इंडिजिनाइजेशन?
कि ये अक्सर सुपरफिशियल होता है, मतलब ऊपर ऊपर से इंडियन दिखता है पर अंदर से वेस्टर्न फ्रेमवर्क ही रहता है, अ कॉस्मेटिक चेंज।
हाउ डू हिंदुत्व आइडियोलॉग्स व्यू दिस प्रोसेस?
वो इसे कन्वर्जन की एक क्लेवर स्ट्रैटेजी मानते हैं, जहां रिलीजन को इंडियन कल्चर में मास्क किया जा रहा है टू मेक इट मोर पैलेटेबल।
एंड व्हिच contextual theology emerged from this process?
दलित थियोलॉजी, जो क्रिश्चियन टीचिंग्स को कास्ट सिस्टम के एक्सपीरियंसेस से जोड़ती है, अ वेरी पावरफुल डेवलपमेंट।
अब इस क्रिटिकल पॉइंट को प्रैक्टिस करो। While indigenization culturally adapts Christianity, critics argue it can be superficial and politically misinterpreted.
In short, indigenization of Christianity is an attempt to make the faith local in India, but it's a tightrope walk between cultural adaptation and doctrinal purity.
Topic name: Discuss the impact of Islam on Indian society.
Broad micro theme: analysis of the profound and multifaceted socio-cultural, religious, political and economic consequences of Islam's advent and consolidation on the Indian societal fabric.
Okay, let's unpack this. Islam की story इंडिया में long and complex है, starting around the 7th century CE with Arab traders. We'll look at its impact across 4 dimensions: religious, cultural, social and politico-economic.
Right. So for the introduction, Islam ने monotheism का concept introduce किया, या तौहीद, the belief in one God.
जो समय के polytheistic tradition से काफी different था.
Yes, and this interaction led to some amazing developments. The background, though, involves both synthesis and conflict.
Right. Scholars like Yogendra Singh ने syncretic culture को highlight किया है. But there were also conflicts like temple destructions or the jizya tax.
Exactly. Now for the core logic. First, the religious and philosophical impact. The rise of Sufi orders with saints like Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti.
जिन्होंने equality and universal brotherhood पे जोर दिया.
Ha, and their dargahs became centers of intercultural interaction. This also led to syncretism, inspiring bhakti leaders like Kabir.
Second, cultural and artistic fusion. This is where the magic happened.
Language and literature में Persian, Arabic और local dialects के fusion से उर्दू and दखनी का जन्म हुआ.
In architecture and art, Islamic aesthetics ने domes, minarets and arches introduce किए, which combined with Indian traditions to create wonders like the Taj Mahal.
बिल्कुल. Sociologist राधा कमल मुखर्जी ने ऑब्जर्व किया कि इस्लामिक आर्ट ने ज्योमेट्रिक पैटर्न्स एंड कैलीग्राफी पर जोर दिया.
And in performing arts,
मुगल पेट्रोनेज से ख्याल एंड गजल इवॉल्व हुए, तबला एंड सितार जैसे इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स पॉपुलर हुए.
third, social and demographic changes. इस्लाम का इक्वालिटी बिफोर गॉड का मैसेज
उसने कास्ट हायरार्की को चैलेंज किया, मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटीज को सोशल मोबिलिटी का पाथ ऑफर करते हुए.
पीएन मदान ने इसे गंगा जमुनी तहजीब कॉम्पोजिट कल्चर कहा.
हाँ, बट स्कॉलर्स लाइक इरावती करवे आर्ग्यू करती हैं कि पर्दा जैसी प्रैक्टिसेस ने पेट्रियार्कल नॉर्म्स को रीइंफोर्स भी किया.
एंड फाइनली पॉलिटिकल एंड इकोनॉमिक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन.
इस्लामिक रूलर्स ने सेंट्रलाइज्ड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन जैसे इक्तादारी और मुगल मनसबदारी सिस्टम्स इंट्रोड्यूस किए.
इकोनॉमिकली न्यू क्रॉप्स इंट्रोड्यूस हुए और मुस्लिम ट्रेडर्स ने इंडिया को ग्लोबल ट्रेड नेटवर्क से कनेक्ट किया.
So the conclusion is that Islam's interaction with Indian society left a complex legacy of profound cultural synthesis, pluralism, and also conflict.
चलो, लेट्स क्रॉस क्वेश्चन दिस. सूफी सेंट्स ने प्राइमरीली क्या प्रमोट किया?
Equality and universal brotherhood. उनका मैसेज लव के बारे में था, डिवीजन के नहीं. याद रखना.
How did the Urdu language develop?
It was a beautiful fusion of Persian, Arabic, and local Indian dialects. It linguistic bridge, समझे?
How did Islam challenge the caste system?
By emphasizing equality before God, it offered a path to social mobility for lower caste groups.
What was a key feature of Mughal administration?
Centralized administration. For example, the Mansabdari system. It was all about control and efficiency.
Time to practice? Let's try saying this complex idea simply. Islam's impact on India was multifaceted, fostering religious syncretism through Sufism, creating a composite culture in art and language, and introducing new administrative systems.
In short, Islam added new dimensions to India's religious, cultural, social, and political life, creating a rich and complex legacy.
Topic name. Explain the impact of Buddhism and Jainism on Indian society.
Broad micro theme, analyzing the multifaceted influence of the Shramana movements, Buddhism and Jainism, on the philosophical, social, political, and cultural landscape of Indian society.
Okay, so in the 6th century BCE, a new wave of thought called the Shramana movement emerged.
As a reaction against orthodox Vedic Brahmanism.
Right. और इससे दो बड़े रिलीजन्स निकले, बुद्धिज्म एंड जैनिज्म. वी लुक एट द कंबाइंड इम्पैक्ट.
इमेजिन एक सोसाइटी जहां आपका बर्थ आपकी डेस्टिनी डिसाइड करता है. दैट वाज द वर्ना सिस्टम.
And Buddhism and Jainism came in and said,
Wait a minute. What matters is your actions, your karma, not your birth. This was a revolutionary idea.
okay, let's discuss the core logic, starting with socio-religious transformation. The biggest impact was the challenge to Varna and Jati systems.
Yes, they rejected the rigidity of the caste system. लुइस डिमोंट ने नोट किया कि उन्होंने प्योरिटी एंड पोल्यूशन की हायरार्किकल आइडियोलॉजी को डायरेक्टली चैलेंज किया.
They also led to the empowerment of women.
हाँ, बुद्धिज्म ने भिखुनी संघा, एन ऑर्डर ऑफ नन्स एस्टैब्लिश की, गिविंग वुमेन अ पाथ टू स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ.
Next, the philosophical and ethical foundation.
दोनों ने अहिंसा, नॉन वायलेंस पर बहुत जोर दिया, एंड दे प्रमोटेड रैशनैलिटी ओवर रिचुअलिज्म.
मतलब?
Instead of complex sacrifices, they focused on ethics and self-control. Sociologist Max Weber ने बुद्धिज्म को ब्राह्मणिकल रिचुअलिज्म का rational alternative कहा.
Now for the political, economic and cultural enrichment.
Politically, Emperor Ashoka ने Buddhist principles को अपनी धामा policies में use किया to unify his diverse empire.
Romila Thapar argues this.
Economically,
Both faiths were supported by merchant classes, boosting trade and commerce. And culturally, they gave us iconic structures like the Sanchi Stupa and the Dilwara temples, Jain,
in language, they promoted local languages like Pali and Prakrit over Sanskrit.
to make teachings accessible to common people.
Yes,
Okay, quick check. How did Buddhism and Jainism challenge the Varna system?
by emphasizing ethical conduct over birth. उनका कहना था कि karma is more important than jati.
What did they do for women's empowerment?
Buddhism established the Bhikkhuni Sangha, the order of nuns, giving women a space for spiritual pursuits. This was a game changer.
How did Emperor Ashoka use Buddhism in governance?
Through his Dhamma policies, which emphasized non-violence and tolerance to unify his empire.
Which languages did they promote and why?
Pali and Prakrit, the languages of the common people, to make spiritual teachings accessible to everyone.
What was their economic impact?
They received support from merchant classes, which in turn boosted trade and commerce. It was a win-win.
Practice time. Rehearse saying this. Buddhism and Jainism challenged the Varna system, promoted ahimsa and rationality, and enriched Indian culture through art, architecture, and vernacular languages.
In short, Buddhism and Jainism were ethical and rational alternatives to Vedic orthodoxy that fundamentally reshaped Indian society.
Topic name? Discuss the social, political, and economic status of Muslims in India.
Broad micro-theme.
Analysis of the status and challenges faced by the Muslim minority community in India across social, political, and economic spheres.
All right, this is a very important and sensitive topic. Muslims are India's largest religious minority, about 14% of the population. We'll examine their status based on key reports. It's like looking at a photograph from 3 different angles to get the full picture. The reality is complex, shaped by history, structure, and contemporary politics.
Let's start with the social status.
Yeah.
The landmark Sachar Committee report of 2006.
That was a deep dive. It revealed that Muslims lag behind other communities in literacy and education.
Right, and scholars like T. N. Madan have discussed the tensions of Muslim identity.
Yes.
Ashutosh Vashni's work shows how communal tensions affect the social fabric.
Now for the political status. Historically, Muslim political representation in legislative assemblies and national politics has been disproportionately low.
The Gopal Singh Committee report of 1983 also pointed this out.
Yes, political scientists like Zoya Hassan argue this marginalization creates a sense of alienation.
And finally, the economic status.
Here too, the Sachar Committee report provided critical data. It indicated a lower presence of Muslims in formal employment and higher poverty levels.
Economist Amitabh Kundu studies show Muslims have less access to economic opportunities, like banking.
Many are engaged in the informal sector, which lacks social security.
The conclusion then is that the status of Muslims reflects systematic disadvantages.
Yes, a multi-pronged approach focusing on education, financial inclusion, and rigorous enforcement of anti-discrimination laws is necessary.
Let's check our understanding. What did the Sachar Committee report reveal?
It revealed that Muslims lag behind on key development indicators like education and formal employment and have higher poverty rates. It was a major wake-up call.
What is the issue regarding their political representation?
There is significant underrepresentation in legislative bodies and government services compared to their population share.
Can you give an example of their economic marginalization?
Lower access to economic opportunities like bank credit and a higher concentration in the informal sector, which lacks security.
What is the impact of majoritarianism on minority rights?
It can lead to political marginalization and a sense of alienation, as their concerns may not be adequately addressed.
So what is needed to improve the situation?
A multi-pronged approach. Better education, financial inclusion, and strict enforcement of anti-discrimination laws.
Let's practice saying this summary. The status of Muslims in India is marked by socio-economic and political challenges, as highlighted by the Sachar Committee report, requiring a focus on inclusion and anti-discrimination.
In short, the Muslim community in India faces significant structural disadvantages across social, political, and economic spheres that need targeted policy interventions.
Topic name:
Explain how Buddhism influenced the economic and cultural transformations of Indian society.
Broad micro theme. Analyzing the multifaceted influence of Buddhism on the economic and cultural transformations of Indian society.
Okay. We've touched on this before, but now we'll zoom in specifically on Buddhism's economic and cultural influence.
It's fascinating how a religion can become an economic driver.
How so?
Imagine a world where your job, like farming, is seen as inherently violent because you might kill insects while plowing. Buddhism offered an ethical framework that was more compatible with non-agrarian professions like trade.
Ah, that's a key point.
Yes. So let's start with economic transformations. First, it was a catalyst for trade and commerce. Buddhist ethics built trust among traders, which is crucial for long-distance trade.
And monasteries on trade routes, like the Silk Road, acted as resting places.
Exactly. Second, it spurred urbanization. Monasteries and stupas attracted artisans, traders, and pilgrims, creating vibrant urban centers.
Third, the integration of guilds, shrenis.
These guilds of artisans and traders financed the construction of stupas and viharas, linking the economy and religion.
Now for the cultural transformations. First, a challenge to social hierarchy.
By promoting equality and admitting women and lower castes into the Sangha, Buddhism redefined social inclusion.
Second, art and architecture. Buddhism gave us monuments like the Sanchi Stupa.
Yeah, and the amazing Gandhara art, a fusion of Indian and Hellenistic Greek styles.
Wow.
Socho, Buddha statues in a Greek style.
Wow. And educational contributions.
Monasteries became great universities like Nalanda and Taxila, attracting scholars from all over Asia.
And finally, literary contributions.
Texts like the Tripitaka and Jataka tales enriched Indian literature. By using local languages like Pali, they democratized knowledge, breaking Sanskrit's monopoly.
Okay, ready for a quick recap quiz. How did Buddhism act as a catalyst for trade?
By promoting ethical conduct, which built trust among traders. Also, monasteries on trade routes served as safe rest stops.
What is Gandhara art?
It was a beautiful syncretism of Indian and Hellenistic Greek art styles, often seen in Buddha sculptures.
How did monasteries contribute to education?
They evolved into great universities like Nalanda and Takshila, becoming ancient centers of excellence that attracted scholars globally.
What was the role of guilds or shrenis?
They were associations of traders and artisans who financed the construction of stupas, directly linking the economy to religious activities.
How did Buddhism democratize knowledge?
By using local languages like Pali instead of Sanskrit, making religious teachings accessible to the common people.
Let's practice. Say this aloud. Buddhism spurred economic transformation through trade and urbanization, and cultural transformation through inclusive social values, unique art forms like Gandhara, and educational centers like Nalanda.
In short, Buddhism was not just a religion. It was a powerful engine for economic growth and cultural innovation in ancient India.
Topic name. Impact of Jainism on Indian society.
Broad micro-theme, analyzing the cultural, philosophical, ethical, and socio-economic consequences of Jainism on Indian society.
Okay, we've touched upon this before, but this is a more focused, shorter look. So we'll hit the highlights again to really lock them in.
Absolutely. Think of it as a super concentrated dose of knowledge on Jainism's impact. The core message is how a numerically small community can have a disproportionately large impact.
Right. So two main buckets. First, ethical and philosophical contributions,
The superstar here is ahimsa, non-violence.
which influenced Mahatma Gandhi's freedom struggle.
And the philosophical gem is anekantavada, non-absolutism, the idea that truth is multifaceted.
Yes. The second bucket is socio-cultural and economic influence,
Their strict vegetarianism has contributed to widespread vegetarian practices.
and in art and architecture.
Their contribution is massive, exemplified by the intricate marble carvings of the Dilwara temples.
Okay, let's test this again. What's the biggest ethical contribution of Jainism?
Ahimsa. It's their defining principle and had a huge influence on India's political history through Gandhi.
And the biggest philosophical one?
Anekantavada, the idea that truth has many sides. In today's world of social media bubbles, this is more relevant than ever.
How did they impact food culture?
Through their strict dietary regulations, which promoted vegetarianism across many regions in India.
Name a key architectural contribution.
The Dilwara temples in Rajasthan, a testament to their devotion and artistic excellence.
Which two anthropologists studied their impact on social structures?
M.N. Srinivas and David G. Mandelbaum. Remembering these names adds weight to your points.
Let's practice the summary sentence. Jainism's impact is profound, from its ethical principle of ahimsa to its philosophical contribution of anekantavada, deeply integrating tolerance and high ethical standards into India's culture.
In short, Jainism's influence is a classic example of quality over quantity. Its powerful ideas have left a deep mark on Indian society.
Topic name?
Islam and matrimony?
Broad micro-theme. Examining the coexistence of the strongly patrilineal religious system of Islam with matrilineal social organization, particularly in the Indian context.
Okay, this is a super interesting and niche topic. It's about a paradox.
Right.
Islam is a religion that prescribes strict patrilineal, descent and inheritance through the male line.
But in some parts of India, like among the Mapila Muslims of Kerala and in Lakshadweep, there are Muslim communities that follow matrilineal descent through the female line. How is this possible?
Exactly. It challenges our neat boxes of how religion and culture work. These communities converted to Islam centuries ago, but held on to their pre-existing social patterns.
Fascinating.
Sociologist Leela Dubey conducted a fantastic study on Kalpeni Island in Lakshadweep. She found that the matrilineal system is very strong, especially where it's tied to economic survival.
So how does that work?
For instance, most property, like the island's coconut trees, is held communally by the matrilineal unit called the Turuwad.
So economic power stays with the matrilineal family.
And Islamic rules?
Only personal property is passed down according to Islamic rules.
Social norms also follow matrilineal, kinship, inheritance, residence.
So what's the conclusion here?
It shows the resilience of little traditions in the face of a great tradition. Local customs can adapt a global religion to their own context.
Fascinating stuff. So where in India do we find Muslim communities that practice matrilineal?
Primarily among the Mapila Muslims of Kerala and in Lakshadweep.
What's the term for the matrilineal unit that holds property in Lakshadweep?
It's called the Turuwad, a key term to remember.
Who studied this phenomenon in Kalpeni?
The sociologist Leela Dubey. Her work is a classic in this field.
How does this system challenge mainstream Islamic practices?
Practices like parda are absent or modified, and women have more agency, which is different from strict patrilineal interpretations.
What does this paradox show?
The resilience of local traditions, little traditions, and their ability to coexist with and adapt global religions, great traditions.
Time to practice. Say this aloud. The coexistence of Islam and matrilineal, seen in communities like the Mapilas, demonstrates the resilience of local traditions where matrilineal economic and social structures are maintained, despite a patrilineal religious framework.
In short, Islam and matrilineal in India is a classic case of cultural adaptation where local customs shape how a global religion is practiced on the ground.
Topic name. Discuss the contribution of Islam to the composite culture of India.
Broad micro theme. Analyzing the role of Islam in creating and enriching India's composite culture, spanning religious, cultural, artistic, and administrative domains.
Composite culture, यानी गंगा जमुनी तहजीब, ये वो कल्चर है जहां अलग-अलग ट्रेडिशंस घुल मिल जाती हैं to create a unique shared identity.
Biryani.
Exactly.
It's the perfect example. Persian culinary techniques meet Indian spices. That's composite culture on a plate.
Let's start with religious and philosophical synthesis. The Bhakti-Sufi synthesis is at the heart of this.
Huh. Sufi mystics like Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti and Bhakti saints like Kabir.
उन्होंने a shared spiritual language create की, focused on personal devotion and love.
Now for the vast cultural and artistic fusion. In language and literature, the fusion of Persian, Arabic, and local dialects gave birth to Urdu.
In architecture and art, we see Indo-Islamic marvels like the Taj Mahal, which combine Persian styles with Indian motifs. The intricate jalis are a great example.
And of course, music and cuisine. Amir Khusro is called the father of Qawwali and is credited with introducing instruments like the sitar and tabla.
And Mughlai cuisine like biryani and kebabs changed the Indian food landscape forever.
Finally, socio-political integration. Rulers introduced centralized administrative systems like Mansabdari, and leaders like Akbar tried to promote syncretism.
Let's check our memory. What's the popular name for composite culture?
Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. The name itself reflects the meeting of cultures.
Which language developed from the fusion of Persian, Arabic, and local dialects?
Urdu. It's a perfect example of linguistic fusion.
Who is credited with popularizing instruments like the sitar and tabla?
Amir Khusro. He was a pioneer in both music and literature.
Name an important system from Mughal administration.
The Mansabdari system. It was a key feature of their centralized administration.
Which Mughal emperor tried to promote syncretism through Deen-e-Ilahi?
Akbar. It was part of his inclusive policy.
Let's practice saying the key contributors. Islam contributed to India's composite culture through Sufism, the Urdu language, Indo-Islamic architecture, and Mughlai cuisine.
In short, Islam added new spices to India's cultural pot, creating a unique and flavorful composite culture.
Topic name. Describe what is known of Harappan religion. Have some of its elements continued into later Hinduism? Discuss.
Broad micro-theme. Examination of the religious features of the Harappan civilization and the analysis of their continuity or transition into later Hindu practices.
Okay, let's travel back to the Indus Valley civilization, around 2600 BCE. We can't read their script, so everything we know is like being a detective, piecing together clues.
It's like trying to understand a movie with the sound off. You see the images, but you have to interpret the story. Sir John Marshall was one of the first to try this.
So what are the key features we see? First, mother goddess worship.
हाँ, archaeologists ने numerous terracotta figurines of a female deity find की हैं, pointing to fertility cults.
Second, the famous Proto-Shiva or Pashupati seal.
A seal from Mohenjo-daro shows a male figure in a yogic posture, surrounded by animals. Marshall ने इसे Proto-Shiva interpret किया.
Third, there's evidence of phallic and fertility cults from linga-like stone objects.
Fourth, animal and nature worship, seen in seals with bulls, unicorns, and the sacred peepal tree. And finally, fire and water rituals.
Fire altars from Kalibangan and the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro was likely for ritual purification.
Yes, Snan. Now the big question, have these elements continued into later Hinduism?
The answer seems to be yes. Mother goddess worship likely evolved into Devi and Shakti worship.
The proto-Shiva image is very similar to later depictions of Shiva. The bull on the seals resembles Nandi, Shiva's vehicle.
And the ritual bathing foreshadows ablutions in sacred rivers like the Ganga.
Exactly. But there are debates. The biggest limitation is the undeciphered script, so we are guessing.
So, what do we remember? What's the name of the famous seal with the male deity?
The Pashupati seal, interpreted as proto-Shiva.
What does the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro suggest?
The practice of ritual purification or snan, a key element in Hinduism.
What's the main evidence for mother goddess worship?
Numerous terracotta female figurines found at Harappan sites.
How does the bull on Harappan seals connect to later Hinduism?
It resembles Nandi, the sacred bull and vehicle of Lord Shiva.
What is the main challenge in confirming these connections?
The undeciphered Harappan script. Without textual evidence, all interpretations are speculative.
Let's practice saying this key idea. Although the Harappan script is undeciphered, archaeological evidence like the Pashupati seal and the Great Bath suggests strong continuities between Harappan religious practices and later Hinduism.
In short, the roots of many Hindu traditions may lie deep in the soil of the Indus Valley civilization, showcasing a remarkable cultural continuity.
Topic name: Sufi tradition of Islam.
Broad micro-theme. Analysis of the mystical dimension of Islam, Sufism, focusing on its core beliefs and contributions to social integration in India.
Okay, we've mentioned Sufism a few times, so let's do a dedicated deep dive. What is Sufism?
In simple terms, it's the mystical dimension of Islam. It's less about external rituals and more about the internal, personal journey to experience God's love directly.
So it's more emotional.
Exactly. It emerged around the 8th, 9th centuries as a response to growing formalism in Islam. Sufis wanted a more personal, emotional connection with the divine. Think of it as the heart of Islam.
Let's look at their core beliefs and practices.
The main goal is spiritual transcendence. For this, they use rituals like dhikr, the repetitive chanting of God's names, and sama, which is devotional music and poetry, like Qawwali.
And the relationship between the murshid, spiritual guide, and the disciple is also very important.
Yes, their socio-cultural impact in India was huge. They played a massive role in fostering India's composite culture.
Sufi saints like Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti promoted inclusivity.
Their dargahs or shrines were open to all. Ashish Nandi observes, these dargahs became vital cultural centers that foster interfaith harmony.
Quick check. What is the core focus of Sufism?
An inner, personal, and direct experience of God, focusing on divine love.
Name 2 key Sufi practices.
Dhikr, chanting, and sama, devotional music.
How did Sufi saints promote social integration in India?
By promoting inclusiveness, their shrines, dargahs, were open to people of all faiths, fostering a composite culture.
What is the role of a murshid?
The murshid is the spiritual guide who leads the disciple on the mystical path.
How do Sufi shrines function in society today?
They function as cultural centers that foster interfaith harmony and a ritual economy.
Let's practice. Say this aloud.
Sufism, the mystical dimension of Islam,
Fosters social integration in India through its inclusive practices like Sama and the role of its shrines as centers of interfaith harmony.
In short, Sufism represents the heart of Islam, emphasizing a message of universal love that has deeply resonated within India's pluralistic society.
तो ये थी हमारी आज की गहरी चर्चा। हमने देखा कि कैसे हजारों सालों में अलग-अलग विश्वासों ने एक दूसरे से इंटरैक्ट किया, sometimes clashing but often creating something new and beautiful.
Bilkul. Let's recap the key takeaways. Religious pluralism is a dynamic balance between diversity and solidarity. Jainism gave us the timeless values of ahimsa and anikantavada. Christianity's indigenization is a complex process, a tightrope walk between being global and local.
Right, and Islam enriched India's composite culture through language, art, and cuisine.
Buddhism challenged the Varna system and acted as a major catalyst for trade and education.
Harappan religion shows incredible cultural continuity with Hinduism.
And Sufism has worked to connect hearts with its message of universal love.
अब इस सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन को लॉक करने का टाइम है। हमारे पास तुम्हारे लिए कुछ कंटेंट प्रोब्स हैं, थोड़ा सोच लो। 1. How would you recall 3 similarities between the Harappan proto-Shiva seal and later Hinduism Shiva?
2. Quick guide. How would you list 2 pros and 2 cons of the indigenization of Christianity?
3. Suggest a memorization tweak for Jainism's 5 Mahavratas, maybe an acronym like ASABA for Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha.
4. What is the paradox of Islam and matrilineal? Explain it in one sentence.
5. How did Buddhism boost the Indian economy? Name 3 key points.
6. To remember Islam's contribution to composite culture, give one example each from food, music and architecture. और अब तुम्हारे लिए एक छोटा सा challenge. Pick one religion from our discussion and practice explaining its impact to a friend in just 2 minutes. See if you can use key terms like anekantvada, syncretism or indigenization.
ये एक बेहतरीन तरीका है नॉलेज को सॉलिड करने का। हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि इस चर्चा ने तुमको नए पर्सपेक्टिव दिए होंगे। अगर आपको ये डिस्कशन पसंद आया तो हमें सपोर्ट करने के लिए सब्सक्राइब जरूर करें, कमेंट सेक्शन में अपने थॉट शेयर करें और इसे अपने दोस्तों के साथ शेयर करके हमारी कम्युनिटी को ग्रो करने में हेल्प करें।
अगली बार तक सीखते रहिए और सवाल पूछते रहिए।